Hi there, welcome to Waybird. This is a platform for you, the travel specialist, to be able to easily create trip ideas, quotes, manage your payments, and manage all of your bookings from start to finish. I'm just going to give you a really quick demo on how to create a trip using Waybird. We'll start by selecting Start a Trip, and from here you can choose from any of our recommended trips, or you can build one up from scratch if you know exactly what you want to build. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to jump into our recommended routes. We have about 220 sample itineraries already built in the platform for you to use or customize. So I'm going to go ahead and just select this one. And then when building a trip, the first thing you want to do is add in a start date, because once you have this, then you'll be able to use our live availability feature. So all of this is set as the trip would travel logically. So starting with your first airport, over here you can add in any extra information, so flight details, what time they're landing, that kind of thing. And then the first transfer is pre-populated, but you can obviously change that to any of these different options and then edit the description as well. And then you'll see the first region is over here. If I want to add a property to that region, simply click Add a Property. We have live availability integrations so that this will then filter by availability. So what it's now doing is showing all of the available properties within the selected date range within this region. So you can see these are all coming up first. You can obviously go ahead and search for the property that you have in mind and then check if it's available. If there is no integration, it'll simply say availability upon request. And in that case, you would just have to then check if it's available from your side. But if I go ahead and add one of these to the trip, you'll notice that the estimated cost will then update as well. So we use from price per person per night rack rates, and you'll see if I change the number of nights as well, then this estimated cost will change too. So this is just a great tool for the planning stages of the trip because it allows you to build a inquiry with properties that you know are available and you can have a rough price point on it. So what I'm going to do next is just add a property into the next region, which is Kruger. There we go. And lastly, now that I've added in properties to each of the different regions, if we now come over to the overview section, you can then see what the trip would look like for your guests. Your guests won't have access to this quote tools feature. This is just for you, the consultant, to be able to make changes to the trip. So once you have built a trip, each trip will have its own unique trip link. You'll see as soon as I save this trip, it'll then create its own URL. You can obviously change the name of the trip, and here's where you can toggle between the two different layouts that we have. So you'll see now that I've saved the trip, it has its own unique URL, and we're now looking at it as the guests would see it once you share it with them. So it starts off with a trip summary where they can get an overview of all the different places that they'll be staying in. If they then click on any of these, it'll take them directly to that property. Then they can also view the map layout by clicking this button over here, and then they can then see the routes of their trip. And then coming on to the next page, it'll start by showcasing the first property. If they click this image, they can then get more information on that property. They can scroll through the different images and read up about it. So as a Waybird user, you get access to all of this curated content. You can see it's quite in-depth, quite personalized. We've got a little insider's tip, something to think about, and all of that. From here, you can also edit the itinerary. So this may be a little bit more intuitive because if you go into edit mode, you can then make changes and see exactly how they would appear as you build. So everything from changing the title of the page, you can add notes and change transfers here as well. You'll notice all of this information about the property is pre-populated, but if you'd like to change anything, then it's easy for you to do so. You can also save pages as templates. So if you've built a page that you think you'll use again in the future, you can simply click these three buttons, save page as template, and then you'll see in the future, you can easily just add page from template. So if I go back to preview mode and continue to scroll, it'll then scroll onto the region that they'll be visiting. Again, if they click on that image, they can get more information about that area. And then by default, it's going to put in our little blurb over here, as well as all the different experiences that they could choose from. The idea is this is just a great tool to initially get something out. Once you get more feedback from your guests and you know exactly what they'd be interested in doing, you can then tailor make the itinerary to them. You can also change out this date range over here. So by default, it'll show a range of dates for however long they'll be staying in that region. Alternatively, you could also have a page per day. So you'll see if I go back into edit mode, I can then allocate this to a day. So I could make this the 22nd. And then if I wanted to add a page after that for the 23rd, you'll see here's a clean page to start with. Could then allocate that to the 23rd and then add in different sections over here and then add in new experiences. So it all just depends on how you'd like the trip to show. It also depends on different types of trips. Like safari trips, for example, it might make more sense to just show a date range there if they're going to be at a certain lodge for, say, 3 or 4 nights and probably doing similar activities every day, versus a Cape Town trip where they might have, their days might look pretty different from one day to the next. So in that case, you can then have a different page per day. If I then continue to scroll, it'll then go on to their next region and next property, which will then show over there. And then again, there is the regional info, next property, and the regional info. So that's how quickly and easily you can put together your first trip idea. You can maybe build a few different options to send off to your guest. The idea is once you got feedback from them, you can then tailor make the trip to their liking. And then once you're ready, you can add in your different costing. And once you add costing, then they can actually pay on the platform. So you'll notice at the moment, it's just using our pricing estimator to put together an estimate. Once you add in your own costing, there'll be one final figure there, and then the pay deposit button will be available over here.